Hey everybody, what's up and how's it going? I wanted to give a quick review and my thoughts of the Louder Than Life Festival in Louisville, Kentucky in 2025. I went on one of the 4 days, that being Friday, and I do have to say, this was the first time I've ever done anything like this. I don't really go to concerts or music festivals. Basically, the closest thing that I've really attended is a football game. So this was something completely new and different for me personally, and I have to say I loved it. So I am pretty familiar with a lot of metal bands, but these bands in particular, I know quite a bit of their stuff, but I wasn't like as plugged in as everybody else. Everybody else knew all the words. A lot of the songs were new to me and different to me, but I did know some of the songs, so it's not like I was a complete stranger to the music. Now, before we get into the specifics, I do just want to talk about kind of the overview and my first impressions. First of all, the exposition grounds there in Kentucky was a perfect place for this kind of event. I don't really know any other kind of places where you could have something of this scale. You certainly probably couldn't have it indoors just because of the sheer amount of people and how much stuff you have going on. So that was definitely really cool to see. And yeah, the first thing you would notice is the crowds. Now, I have to say this crowd was definitely me being a little bit out of my element. These people, definitely a lot of cool people there, but just you're gonna see all kinds and all types. So yeah, it kind of looked a little more like almost a Halloween or a costume party, just in the amount that people were dressed up. I definitely felt underdressed, but as I said, it's just not really my scene to get super dressed up for things, and I didn't feel like I was standing out by any means. Now, I will say, if you are uncomfortable around, scantily clad people, or if you have a small child who you don't want to see that stuff, then certainly I would avoid this festival and probably most festivals in general. I do think for a lot of people there is a form of escapism, so they're going to do a lot of things that they wouldn't normally do in their average lives, and that includes the things that they wore. So it didn't bother me. I just thought that was relevant to bring up because it certainly was something that stood out to me and that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Now, getting into the music, which is what I think everyone really cares about, we basically stuck around the two main stages for most of the day. There are about 6 or 7 stages going, but we just kind of wanted to see the main bands. So I will say, when I started out the day, I was on very low sleep and it was hot as hell out, so I was feeling a little bit sluggish and maybe not quite as excited as I should have been at the beginning of the day. But as things went on, I think that it got a lot better for me personally. So the first band to play, I think it started off about noon, was Nonpoint. I hadn't heard any of their stuff before, but I think they definitely got things started off the right way. It seemed more of like a hardcore kind of style, I guess you could say. And it really got things going. Now, the grass, it was a big turf and cement area out in front of the stages. So I would say that it was maybe like a quarter full when we first got there, which, it's a little bit unfortunate that the earlier bands don't have more dense crowds, but I'm sure that's something that's completely understood and expected when they start out. So we saw Nonpoint, and I thought that they could put on a pretty good performance. There was a lot of good energy, and it did get things started off the right way. Now, the second band on the second stage was Northlane, and I actually know Northlane pretty well. I knew, I think, every single song that they played. Their set was a little more scaled back. There wasn't like a whole lot of props or anything like that. It was just 4 guys on there playing. So it was a little bit muted from that perspective, but the music was awesome, a very talented group, and I certainly enjoyed that one. Now, after this, I took a little bit of a break because I was feeling the heat in a big way. I do have to say, one critique I would have for the festival is it's very hard to access food, which is expected with so many people there. But if you want to get something from the concessions, you're going to be waiting in a super long line, which is a kind of a pain in the butt. And even the water station, I feel like they probably should have had at least 2 or 3 water stations because that wait got ridiculously long. So that would just be my small critique, but as I said before, when you have this many people, not everything's going to be perfect. But anyway, during that, I think that, I forget the name of the band who played. I'm sorry, I'm not quite familiar with them. But, so there was, I think, 2 bands that played during that time that I can't really recall. And then After that, I think Eminence was playing, and I didn't really stick around too much for that one. But I know my cousin really enjoyed that band, and I think it was new to him, so that was cool. Then I think a couple more bands went off. I remember Static X was on, and I didn't really stay around too much for that one. So as you can see, I was maybe not paying as close of attention as I should have been. Then I remember pretty distinctly when Paris got on. Never heard of them before, but I think it was just a two-person band, maybe a little more low-key music, so that was kind of a nice change up from just the absolute pounding you got in every other band. So liked them quite a bit. And then after that, I think it was the Insane Clown Posse. Now, they are certainly not metal, and I will say, this band I really don't get. I had a couple drinks that day. I'm really glad I had a drink before this band came on, because otherwise, I'm not sure how I would have handled it. It's a little bit of a fever dream situation. Like, they were pouring pop on the audience, which was, I would probably be kind of pissed off if I was in the front row, if I'm going to be honest, but I think that their fans love that. Now, I'm not really sure if that's music that adults should be listening to personally. I don't know. Like, I'm all for theatrics and having fun, but that was just maybe a little on the cringe side. But, you know, those guys get paid for doing it. They have a lot of fans, so I'm not going to fault them for that. And I'm sure if anybody who's a juggalo watches this video, they're probably going to give me a bunch of shit, so I'm open to criticism, whatever. So after that, things really got ratcheted up a notch. My cousin's favorite bands were Daywalker. I don't even remember their name, I'm sorry. Dayseeker, Sleep Token, and Spirit Box. And I knew all three of those bands. I didn't know all songs for all three of those bands, especially the newer stuff. But I was able to enjoy those performances with him. So we started off with Dayseeker. It was kind of just felt like the festival started in earnest. We really got up into the crowd up at the front, and I have to say, once I did that, I really, my energy flipped. I really enjoyed it a lot more. And that's crazy coming from me, because I'm someone who kind of hates crowds. I feel like I lose my individuality and my identity. I feel like I'm a sitting duck in a target, but I don't know, man. This was just a lot more fun than I expected it to be, getting mashed in with all those people. You don't have to care about that kind of stuff. You're just social. Even if you're not a social person, you're forced to be social. It's a lot of fun. Nobody's judging anybody for anything. And I met a lot of cool people. I guess the only thing that's unfortunate is you really don't hang on to a lot of the people you meet at these things. You know, you just kind of meet them and then you go your separate ways. It would have been nice to maybe get to know more people, so maybe that would happen if you went to all 4 days. But anywho, Dayseeker had a great performance. I knew some of their songs. I think there were planes flying over. There was pyrotechnics. Yeah, they sounded awesome. So that was pretty much the start of me having a great experience there. So then after that, they had, I think it was Mudvayne or whatever their name is, and I went to get another drink during this time. I'm sorry, but some of these older bands, they're not for me. They don't have a lot of rhythm, and there was definitely some cringe moments during that performance. I think a lot of the people on our side, which was like the more hip new music, were just like, what the hell is this? And I kind of agree with them. But once again, no disrespect to those bands. They don't need my endorsement. They're rock stars. They make a lot of money, and they have a lot of fun while doing it. So good for them, right? So then after that, Spirit Box came out. I was a little bit probably at my tipsiest when Spirit Box came out. I got separated from my friends, so I was just kind of with other people, and I didn't even allow the fact that I was kind of lost to take away from the experience. I knew a lot of their songs. It was super fun, and I think Courtney was probably the best performer at the whole thing. She's actually amazing with her vocals. They sound just like the real deal, the studio recorded vocals. And I think that might have been one of the bigger shows they've ever played. So I was super impressed, and I do see them continuing to become more and more popular in the future, just because what a dynamic performance that was. It was awesome. It hit so hard. You know, when I used to listen to those bands, maybe their sound seemed a little more basic compared to some of the other metal I listened to, some of the more technical stuff, or whatever, but just like when you're at a festival and these things, like a basic breakdown, for example, it might be kind of boring when you hear it in a studio recorded version because it's like, every band does this, it's not a big deal, but when you hear it live, it just hits so hard and it's so good. And yeah, she was awesome, the band was awesome. I really enjoyed the Spirit Box performance, and it was the only one that I took a video of. Probably wouldn't have even taken any videos if I wasn't a little bit tipsy, because I do like to live in the moment, but I did take a video. It turned out like crap. I'll probably use a still as a screenshot. So then after that, it was Breaking Benjamin, and yeah, I really enjoyed them because I knew some of their songs. They put on a really good performance. I would say they were one of the only ones over on the stage on the left, which was more of the legacy older acts that I actually enjoyed. But yeah, everyone was jamming out to those songs. It was fantastic. And then the big moment that everyone was waiting for happened. The Sleep Token merch was everywhere. People were dressed up as the lead singer. Normally I would think that the kind of gimmick, like the mysteriousness, is kind of cringe, but they pull it off so well. And finally when they came out, it was dark out. Everybody lost it. And everyone was so excited that the crowd almost got a little bit dangerous, I would say. Like, we were packed in, and there were just nonstop crowd surfers to the point where you could hardly enjoy the performance. Everyone was up on shoulders. It was just crazy. And overall, even though it took away from the performance, I still really enjoyed it. One thing I will say is that maybe the safety wasn't as good as it could have been, especially for some of the smaller girls. I think I saw 4 or 5 people have to get carried off because they fainted, in the heat and the crowd and probably drinking. So that was, not great, but I think everybody pulled through and turned out fine, and that's probably just a part of festivals. So it's not like I'm calling for anything to be changed. I'm just saying that, yeah, there's definitely some risk to going to those festivals, especially if you're a little bit shorter, or you just kind of get suffocated in there. Me, myself, I felt fine because I was one of probably the sturdier people there, so I was just kind of able to bulldoze my way through whenever I needed to. But yeah, so overall, Sleep Token was super cinematic, the set was put together for them really well. It was a complete set. There was petals falling from the sky, there was a waterfall in the background. It was just absolutely beautiful. And I have to say, it's just funny to see all of these people who you wouldn't really expect them to be into such melodic and complex music, I guess. Just that's the stereotype for the type of people who attend these festivals, but they loved it. I loved it. They knew all the lyrics. I didn't really know all the lyrics, but I still really enjoyed that performance. So probably Spirit Box or Sleep Token was the best band on the list. And the final closer over on the left stage was Avenged Sevenfold. Both my cousin and I were not super into that band, so we decided to try to get a head-on start and get out of there. So we were kind of leaving as they started, and that didn't end up helping us because the other major criticism of the festival was just how the parking lot was liquidated. It did not go very well. People were trapped in there for a very long time. So that kind of was not the greatest ending, but certainly won't allow that to take away from what was definitely one of the best days of my life in a very long time. So if you were at Louder Than Life, let me know what you thought. And yeah, definitely would do it again. Definitely would probably do multiple days as well. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.